Hello and welcome to Thursday's Year 2 Phonics for Grasshoppers and Dragonflies. So, today's lesson follows pretty much the same pattern that we looked at yesterday. But firstly, we are going to look at the words we have been learning this week. But today, we're not just going to practice reading them. I want you to see if you can actually write and spell these words correctly as well. Please get yourself a piece of paper so that you can write these down. What you might want to do is once they're all up on the screens, pause the video so that you can have a little practice at writing and spelling them. So our first word is cried. We then have stopped, thought, saw, found, fell, told, and gave. A really good thing you might want to do is write the words in a list down, then cover them up with your hand and then see if you can write them next to it or cover it up with a book or whatever you have to hand, and then see if you have managed to be able to write and spell those words correctly. Okay, and just looking again at these, some words, some ways that you might help you remember those words is to break them up into syllables, find their root words, use a common spelling pattern, or to write a mnemonic. So yesterday we looked at the difference between regular and irregular verbs. What can you remember about those? Perhaps have a little think right now. So regular verbs form their past tense by adding ed to them, okay? Whereas irregular verbs do not form their past tense by adding a d or an ed because they completely change the word from when you move from the present to the past tense. So we looked at this yesterday, so we're going to investigate some different words today. So it's the same rule of not being able to add the ed because it's an irregular verb, but we're going to look at it with some different verbs. So here we've got the word bite would become bit. Drive would become drove. Feel would become felt, and get would become got. I'm sure you could find plenty more examples of these. So we're now going to have a go at practicing turning the following verbs into the past tense using the rules we have learnt of irregular verbs. So get yourself a pen and paper and let's have a look. We've got the word lose, ride, run, say, take, and win. So what I'd like you to do now is perhaps pause the video so that you can write down what the past tense of these words are going to be. It won't be I losed, I rided, I runned, I sayed, I taked, I winned, because that doesn't make sense. We can't just add the ed to them. It's an irregular verb, so we have to completely change the word. So off you go, have a little practice. Okay, hopefully you had a little go at trying to work out what those words were. Let's have a little look now. So lose would become lost. Okay, ride, what would that become? Ride would become road. Run would become ran. We don't say I runned a race, do we? We say I ran a race. Say will become said. Take will become took. And win will become won. We didn't win the race, we won a race. Well done if you got all of those correct. So just like yesterday, we are going to have a look at another piece of a story. This one today is called Could I? Again, it is written in the past tense and we're going to look at how to identify the irregular verbs in this piece of text that are written in the past tense. So I'm going to read it to you first and then we can go through it and have a look at the words that are in the past, irregular verbs that are in the past tense. So it's called Could I? Mr. and Mrs. Hood had a house by the sea. Mr. Hood was a fisherman. When he was away on a fishing trip, Mrs. Hood got very lonely and sad. I need a job, she said to herself. I like to look at books. I could sell books in the bookshop. She went to the bookshop, but the people there said no. This is no good, Mrs. Hood said to herself. I should stop and think. Okay, so we're going to go through, just like we did yesterday, and have a look at what words are written in the past tense and using an irregular verb. So firstly, we've got Mr. and Mrs. Hood had a house by the sea. If that was in the present tense, we'd say Mr. and Mrs. Hood has a house by the sea. So Mr. Hood was a fisherman. In the present, we say Mr. Hood is a fisherman. When he was away on a fishing trip, Mrs. Hood got very lonely and sad. So when he was away, present would be when he is away. Then Mrs. Hood got very lonely and sad. It would be Mrs. Hood, what could we say? Mrs. Hood was very lonely and sad. Okay, we could change the words around. That could be different words, actually. Mrs. Hood is very lonely and sad. I need a job, she said to herself. So in the present, that would be she says to herself. I like to look at books. I could sell books in the bookshop would be I can sell books in the present tense. She went to the bookshop. Okay, so in the present tense, we would say what would we say? She went to the bookshop is the past tense. She's going to the bookshop would be in the present. But the people there said no. Again, we've got that word said. We go from says in the present to said in the past. This is no good, Mrs. Hood said to herself. We've got that word said there again. I should stop and think. So should, in this case, if we were talking about it in the present tense, you would say, I shall stop and think. So this is, again, it's quite tricky, this, trying to pick out all these words that have changed from the past to the present to the past. Okay, and just like yesterday, the whole of this extract with a little bit extra is saved on Teams under the file for today's phonics if you'd like to have a go at doing this at home where you could circle the word yourself. Also, it'll give you a little bit more time to have a look at it. So I hope you have a good day and I will see you tomorrow for tomorrow's phonics. Goodbye.